Hello and welcome to Beyond the Headlines, where we connect you to the community through the Journal Tribune. I'm your host, Justin Chenette, and today's guest is the newest reporter to join the staff at the Journal Tribune, Alan Bennett. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Justin, for having me.
And also welcome to Biddeford area.
Yes, yes.
So I really want to kind of peel back the layers of Alan Bennett.
Okay.
Just kind of, I know this is a 60-minute special. What made you decide to go into the journalism field?
Well, I've said before, it wasn't the most glamorous. I just always liked writing. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it, but I know I always liked nonfiction. So I figured, well, the most nonfiction it gets is news. So why not try it out? I liked it and decided to just apply for jobs.
And you went to UMaine?
Yep, graduated this past May.
Oh my goodness! So
I know.
Jumping right into it.
Yep. I'm lucky to have that. A lot of people don't.
And you wrote for the school newspaper there?
Yep. Their paper is the main campus. I was the culture editor this past year. I wrote for it before, so I did a lot of arts features, a lot of food work, some movie stuff.
A little bit of everything.
Yep. Kind of dabbled. Yep.
That's fun. So when are we going to see these restaurant reviews in the paper?
I don't know.
TikTok, we're going to get on that. So you graduated in May, so that must feel like really good validation for you, because a lot of young people that I talk to have a hard time, especially right out of college, finding jobs, especially in their field.
Yep. And I know a lot of my friends are also still struggling to find a job in their field. They're working, but not what they wanted to do. So I interviewed over spring break. I won't lie, I hadn't heard of the Journal Tribune before. I grew up north of Portland, so it's not in my coverage area, but I know, got to work on that, I guess. No, but I saw the job posting on Indeed.com and just sent it in, and the next day got an interview. Wow. Interviewed over spring break, and I guess it went really well. So,
would you give any sort of tips or anything for budding journalists of what to have maybe in terms of your portfolio or the things you should be working on in college in order to get a job right out of?
The number one thing is to have a portfolio. Keep a website with all your writing on it, all your photography, all your movie stuff. If you feel like it's not even good enough to put on your website, just keep it on there anyway, because it shows that you at least know what you like, that you have the skills to try and do it. Right. You're not afraid to take the risk, and you have the experience. That was one thing I was always adamant about, was keeping my website up to date, which I haven't done in a while now. So
if we go to alanbennett.com, is that a...
It's actually alandavidbennett.com.
Okay, so well there we go. We're going to
yeah.
search online. Well, I just went to a baby shower this past weekend, and the first thing I told my friend, I'm like, did you get the domain name registered for your baby yet? And they're looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, you have to secure the baby's name in the URL. It's a big thing now.
When they are 17, they're going to want it. Right. So
they could be a journalist or a politician, or you never know. They'll have their own brand.
Exactly.
It'll be good. So how have you, you said you grew up north of Portland, so what has it been like covering news around Biddeford?
Well, it's been interesting because it's very different from where I grew up. I grew up in Gray, and we didn't even really have a newspaper. We had the Gray News, and then the Gray News died. It was a big deal, actually. And so, I grew up reading the Press Herald, and then when I moved up to Orono for school, I was reading the Bangor Daily News a lot. So it's interesting to see how we're a little more locally focused, and I like it because I think the local stories are the most important for the people right here. You can get the bigger news elsewhere, but I think we cover a big enough area, but also we bring the stories back to the people, and that's really important.
And do you think that that is sort of the intrinsic value of community journalism? And we hear all the time about print's dead, newspapers, do people still read newspapers? I mean, what have you found, like, not just growing up reading other newspapers, but also working in the field, in terms of the value of print?
I've always felt that print is never actually going to die. I think there's a nostalgia factor to it too. A lot of younger people are now picking up newspapers. They're obviously getting their news online, but they're still reading the newspapers because there's a value in it. There's something that just feels good about holding the paper.
It's an experience.
Exactly, and it might be retro or something, but if you look at your county's demographic, we're serving people who primarily read newspapers. And I think there's definitely a value to that community news. You can learn about your neighbor. You can learn about you can find things out about yourself. You can trace the story back to you somehow. And I think if you can make your reader relate to the story, that's the most important part.
And speaking of different stories, you've covered a number of things just in the short amount of time you've been at the paper. What are some of the things that really pop out at you so far of just being able to cover them?
I think Biddeford specifically has a really rich history and a rich, it's a rich current. We're in a really exciting time to be covering Biddeford with the development in the art scene, with the development downtown physically. We're moving into a new age, and it's interesting to see the how people are embracing it. And it's a really exciting time to be reporting on it. And I think that's what makes me want to keep writing about this area and really drives me to want to learn more about this area. And people's stories are just so fascinating. They're doing tours in the mills right now, and I got to hear all about a gentleman's, grandfather who worked in the mills.
Oh, yeah.
And with the City Theater, I got to. Eva Gray is the resident ghost of the City Theater, and last week her granddaughter and great-granddaughter visited, and it was just so exciting to hear how they connected to the physical space so much. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, I saw that. I was just going to bring that up because I saw in one of the July editions of the newspaper, big front page kind of expose on Encore 112 years in the making. Yep. I bet that was really special.
It was. The granddaughter, Patricia, was so, of course she was theatrical herself too. Very, very animated and candid, and she was so excited to come to this space. And she's losing her eyesight.
Oh, no.
She has glaucoma, and to come to the theater now was really important. And she had just lost a daughter in the past year, and it was just her and her one other daughter who wanted to come, and they got to experience where Patricia's grandmother, Eva, had, they stood on stage where she did, and they saw the dressing room where we think she died, and it was a really fascinating experience. And they didn't even care as much about the family history aspect of it as much as the history what it means to downtown.
Right.
So they put themselves in Biddeford for the time being. They were only here for 5 days, but they really saw the value in Biddeford, and they saw what this theater offers the community, and it was fun. I had a great time.
That sounds like it.
Yeah.
My goodness. And you also did something unique with this story, unlike others. There was a multimedia component.
Yeah, well, I'm trained in multimedia specifically. I've taken classes in it in New York as well as UMaine and Orono. So I did a video with it, a short clip. It didn't even really focus on what the article focused on, but that's what I like about it. You can get different parts of it depending on what you go to. Did a lot of photos with it, and wrote a piece. So it was a complete package, and it was a lot of fun to do. Quick turnaround. Right. Fastest I've ever had to make a multimedia piece.
Editing very quickly.
I stayed up pretty late, but it was worth it, I think, yeah.
And this was probably one of the first times that the Journal has or any local newspaper has started to venture into at least this sort of platform. Yeah. Do you think that this is, in terms of the digital era of journalism, do you think that that's where we're all heading in terms of journalism?
I do. I think, I mentioned the importance of print and how I don't think it's going to die, but I think it also needs something strong to go along with it. And how you market your print paper is online as well. We're doing it through Facebook, we're doing it through our website, through our ads. I think it's important that we, despite being a hyper-local print paper, that we at least move into something more modern to go along with it. And videos are a great way to do that because you can put them on Facebook. That's why I made one that was only a minute and a half long. It's a perfect time.
We have short attention spans.
Exactly. We do. And, we're, especially in this modern age, something's always moving, something's always going to be happening. You don't want to sit on Facebook watching a video for 5 minutes.
Right.
So
unless it's a cat video, and then
us
we're all
cats,
over.
yeah, but cats. So I think it's important, that we at least accompany our paper with something a little more up to date. And videos are a great way to do that. And even photo essays now are an important thing. Extended cut lines with clips on slideshows are becoming really, really big, as are even audio clips. The resurgence of the podcast has been enormous in the past couple of years, and I'd love to see the paper keep it up, and I'd love to continue doing it.
Well, that was my next question. Where would you like to see the journal? Obviously, I'm a big fan of the digital era, but where would you like to see the paper, and especially with your past experience with other papers, where would you like to see it maybe in 5 to 10 years from now?
I mean, I would love to see it have a full interactive website, where you can search by the author, by the keyword, by, the video. We would have a video section. We would have a podcast section, and we could expand the sections that we already do have into further subsections. We have an arts section maybe with, restaurant, theater, movie, all that kind of thing. I think we're in a place now where we can start doing some of that. We have a staff who is very willing to take on new challenges, and I think it'd be exciting to see the journal start to go that way, even in the next couple of years.
And what has been your sort of impression of the area? Obviously, you live in Portland. What has been your impression of the people in the area and the community since reporting on it? Because it probably gives you a different perspective when you're coming from the outside, but you're having to cover people's stories and their lives.
Exactly. You hear so many things about communities before you actually immerse yourself in them. Mm-hmm. So, obviously, we all know that Biddeford has a little bit of a reputation on the negative side. At least that's what you hear about. But when you start working in the city, you realize that the people here care about this city so much. I've met so many great people in the downtown area and on the outskirts of the city who really care about what's happening politically, economically, artistically, and it's incredible to see the passion continue throughout so many different areas of the city. And it's not just the downtown that wants to develop, it's the outside areas. It's moving toward the Kennebunks, all that. They're really, the people in this city just care about it and want to see it grow and want to see it better itself. And I think in the stories that I've written, I'm really starting to see that it is bettering itself, and it's exciting.
It does feel like there's a new energy.
Yeah, and I can sense it even having only worked here for 2 months. It's not the city I was expecting to cover, and I think that's what's been great about it.
Now, what is one hidden thing about Alan Bennett that we don't know about that you'd want to share with everybody, just to kind of get a glimpse into who you are and how you think about life?
I mean, cooking is like my passion.
Okay, well, we should have did a cooking segment.
Journalism is like up there, but cooking is like
cooking
up there.
So you're a big fan of Ina Garten and Food Network.
Ina Garten is my favorite. She's filming new shows.
I saw that on Instagram or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, love her.
She has a whole closet of different alcohols that she uses.
Cooking alcohol.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah. She tends to sample it a lot, but she does use that.
Exactly.
So, okay, so cooking is a big thing.
Food Network is when I usually watch Barefoot Contessa before I go to bed. It's a great way to de-stress. She's so relaxing.
I do like Barefoot Contessa.
How bad could that be?
Lots of great shows.
Oh,
lots of great shows. Well, we should have did something here. Then we'll have to do a cooking segment.
I can cook for you anytime.
Okay, we're going to do it. I think that would be fun to do a cooking segment. It's like
cooking with the JT. JT Cooks.
JT Cooks.
That's a new thing. We'll pitch that later at our staff meeting.
Okay, that'll be a new thing. I like it. It's a new segment. Okay, and so if people had ideas for stories, if they said, Alan, I really, this is a hidden gem in the Biddeford area, and I'm assuming you only cover Biddeford, right? So we're only focusing on Biddeford-centric stories. What can people do or what would be the ideal story for you?
Well, let me tell one thing that actually happened this past week. One of my favorite stories I've written so far. A woman named Maureen Green, who's from Biddeford, she lives in Waterboro, called me, and her sister lives in Biddeford. And she said, I have an idea. My uncle died in a plane crash during World War II, but not in the war. It was just on their way to California. The actress, Carol Lombard, was on the plane, and she died in this plane crash. It hit a mountain outside of Las Vegas. And his name was Kenneth Donahue, the uncle. She said his remains are being brought back to Biddeford. They found him in the desert. Wow. And I guess more than half of his remains were just sitting out there. And they were identified last year, and they're coming back today.
Oh my goodness.
And so that was, if you look at this past weekend's paper in the Sunday edition, there's a story on it. So these stories, I want people to know that if you call me, I'm going to listen to what you tell me about. I really think if you have something interesting, I would love to know about it. And so also read the Sunday paper, because I was pretty happy with that. So pitch that one.
No, that's interesting, because it really showcases that everybody does have a story, and it's
Yeah.
not always the tried and true. There was a car crash here, there's a
Exactly.
political scandal here. We've all seen that every day.
Yep.
And there's so much turmoil in the world today that we don't have to be constantly reminded, but there's those positive
Exactly.
stories that
Exactly.
are really great.
Those human interest stories, just things that people want to read about that they might not think about.
Right. So if somebody has one of those,
Yep.
what can they do?
So they can call 282-1535, extension 329. That's my office. And you can also email me at abennett@journaltribune.com.
That sounds great. And if there was one piece of just a little bit of a tidbit that you wanted to leave people with, what would you say?
Read the paper.
Read the paper.
Read the paper, but also go online,
Yeah.
because it's important. It's going to help us continue to grow.
That sounds great. Okay, well, Alan, thanks for coming on. Next
You,
time, we're
Justin.
going to have a cooking segment.
I will cook next time.
It's going to be super fun. And thanks, Alan, and thank you guys for watching. This has been Beyond the Headlines, where we connect you to the community through the Journal Tribune. I've been your host, Justin Schnedt. Stay tuned and stay connected.